problem is she is just, her decision making has just been all over the place. Yeah. So Torrance PD up at the intersection up ahead here. She probably doesn't see him yet. There's a CHP unit right behind her, and I hesitate to keep calling her because at this point we've heard her, we've heard he. We just don't know whether it's a he or a she, but in any event, it doesn't really matter. We just know that this driver is desperate, dangerous, willing to really travel at extreme speeds, even on surface streets. At one point earlier in the valley, doing over 60 to 70 miles per hour on Ventura Boulevard. So clearly, no regard for anybody's safety here, including their own, and we don't even know whether there's somebody else inside that vehicle. But we'll see if this Torrance PD unit gets involved. Over the double yellow lines into oncoming lanes again, and making a left turn now onto Artesia Boulevard. No sign of that Torrance PD unit moving, but this is going to put her back onto the freeway, I believe the southbound side of the 405. So LAPD was a little bit more cautious. CHP has really kept the pressure on, although you're right. It has gone in and out of pursuit mode and tracking mode, but for as long as they can keep up with her, they seem to be determined to get her off the road. The only time they've really put it into tracking mode is when she's going the wrong way and it's just too dangerous to continue that type of driving. In any event, it's now on the freeway, which is by all accounts, really the safest spot for a pursuit like this, just because there's a lot more room to play with. The speeds are less of a factor, although the speeds can still be very dangerous, especially if she steps on it. But right now, only doing about 65 to 70 miles per hour, so right within the speed limit, if you will, which tells me that there's probably not anybody in her rearview mirror. And as we widen out, you can see that does appear to be the case. So despite the fact that CHP has a helicopter right over her, they don't have anybody behind her at the moment. That has changed sporadically at various points. There have been several motor units that have gotten involved, and there have been other CHP division offices that have gone in and out of this pursuit already. So now we're still southbound on the 405 freeway, coming up on Long Beach Ave, but still no signs of getting off the freeway at this moment, and it looks like the driving has tamped down just a little bit. This might be the 110. It's the 110 transition, and I think this is going to end up on the southbound side. Yeah, southbound side of the 110 freeway, and this will put her in the direction of San Pedro, go all the way down to the port if they stay on the 110. So now 110 southbound. As I look out the window here, traffic considerably lighter on the 110 than the 405, although they still will have an occasional, well, they'll just have to keep weaving through, because despite the fact that traffic is light, there are plenty of vehicles out there, and this person has established a pattern of just weaving past anybody in their way, even without anybody chasing right behind them. They've made full use of those right shoulders and the left shoulder on occasion as well, just to get as far as they possibly can, and thinking they're outrunning the police, although CHP still all over it and monitoring each and every move that this person makes. Yeah, you really nailed it, and it's important because everybody is different. Every pursuit driver who's trying to get away from law enforcement has a very different psyche, a very different mentality behind the wheel, depending on so many different variables. In this case, a suspicion that this person may be impaired, but you're so right. Every time that we've seen law enforcement get into the picture or make an aggressive move to try and bring it to an end, she steps on it, speeds up, and makes really erratic moves. That has been true since the inception of this pursuit, when CHP first tried to pull this person over on Winnetka, and that person just kept on going, refusing to yield, and that's what's led us to this point. Now, all the way to the right on the 110 freeway, so ready to get off if they decide to, or just get around whatever traffic's in their way here. But what we don't see is any sign of law enforcement, and that does, at this point, appear to be intentional. You do notice, as we've been noticing throughout this pursuit, there is some damage on the driver's side. Unclear whether that happened during this pursuit or at some other point in time, but it's certainly indicative of the driving that we've seen, and we do know for sure that there is some minor damage on the passenger side that's a result of a minor collision on the 405 freeway. I believe that was up in the West LA area, where we saw that a move to try and get away from a motor officer. And you can see it. We've covered a lot of ground, David. We're in the Wilmington area now, southbound on the 110 freeway, and the CHP nowhere in sight at this point. So that makes me wonder if they're thinking about letting this go. Now, it's just so interesting because obviously the driving has been very erratic. We've seen signs of instability. But it does make you wonder, every time that they've tried to pull this person over, the reaction has not been good. And it makes you wonder if there might be, it's speculation of course, but whether there might be something more to this. What is going through this person's mind, we never know, but is there another crime that's been committed here? Is there something else that this person is hiding from because they are desperate to not go to jail right now, and they're basically just trying to get away at all costs, despite the fact that they're putting so many people's safety in danger here. We're continuing towards the San Pedro area as we make our way through Wilmington, southbound on the 110 freeway at triple-digit speeds, and looks like this is where the freeway ends, and so they could go either way. Could go north or south on Gaffey Street. She's showing signs, or they are showing signs of making a left turn. That's going to be southbound on Gaffey Street, just off of the 110 freeway, and we're back in LAPD's jurisdiction. Quite frankly, the Harbor Division could pick this up, or CHP might just let it go. We'll see what happens. Yep, every single time. You're right. Every single time, this driver does the exact same thing. Gives himself plenty of room in case they have to make a sudden move. It shows some degree of competence and some degree of experience here as they are intentionally looking for a way out in the event that law enforcement catches up here. This person is desperate to get away. Is showing some degree of competence in planning for that getaway in the event that somebody pulls up behind her. And sorry, just turning off one of my radios here. But that's a pattern that has now clearly been established as well, David. No, and we haven't for some time. It was on the 110 freeway for a good 5 minutes without any sign of law enforcement, and now a random U-turn here on Gaffey Street because there was just too much traffic there. The light was a little too long, and it just looked like a little bit of impatience there to get through that intersection. So instead, just deciding to make that U-turn against traffic. Now, another question is going to be whether law enforcement has been able to determine whether A, this is a stolen vehicle or not. We haven't gotten any indication of that. But if it's not a stolen vehicle and this car belongs to the driver, do they know, and now I'm being told it's definitely not a stolen vehicle. Now we wonder, have they had the opportunity, presumably they certainly have, had the opportunity to run those plates and just figure out where this person lives, where the vehicle is registered, and maybe deciding to catch up with this person at a later point in time also makes you wonder, where are they from? Where is this person familiar with? Because to go from the valley all the way down here to the San Pedro area and now back onto the 110 freeway northbound, clearly this person doesn't really know where they want to bring this to an end. We were in the Tarzana area originally, CHP originally trying to pull the person over off on Winnetka. She or he ended up on the 101 for some time and then got onto Ventura Boulevard, which there was considerable amounts of traffic on Ventura. There was pedestrian traffic, and that's where the driving was some of the most dangerous that we've seen and heard over the radio into oncoming lanes of traffic. Ventura Boulevard through Tarzana into the Encino area before going under the 101 onto Burbank, heading all the way over towards the 405, and then making really erratic moves once LAPD pulled up right behind them, eventually getting onto the 405 freeway, which has brought us all the way down here into the South Bay, now going the opposite way on the 110 freeway, going northbound on the northbound side, on the correct side of the freeway, but northbound now in the opposite direction of where we came from on the 110. So again, very light traffic on the 110 right now, very unusually light traffic, certainly never this light when I'm on it, and using all of those lanes whenever there is somebody in their way, just weaving right across those lanes. But look at this, I mean, really nothing stopping this person and nobody really showing any signs of pulling them over, and I can't even, actually, I can't tell you that there is still a CH helicopter, but it's decided for the time being to just track this from above. Just wait for this vehicle to run out of gas. Again, time is always on law enforcement side here. There's only so much gas in the tank. We have no idea how much fuel was in this when it all started, but it's certainly not worth putting anybody's life in risk if they can help it. One hour. Yeah, continuing northbound now on the 110 freeway. So as you mentioned before, we've really covered quite a bit of ground, starting in the valley all the way through West LA on the 405, down to the 110 freeway, and for no reason whatsoever, no apparent reason whatsoever, getting off at the end of the 110 and making a sporadic U-turn and getting back onto the northbound side. At one point, when we were coming through LAX's airspace on the 405, we saw some erratic driving. But now, as I look over there, that's not even, it's a good thing, because right now that marine layer is moving in over the 405 freeway. We're looking pretty good over here on the 110 freeway, so that is not inhibiting CHP's ability to keep up, or our ability to keep an eye on this person either, as long as we can. Again, northbound on the 110 freeway with very light traffic through Compton, and much more reasonable speeds, I would say. You're really doing the speed limit. As often happens, yes, sometimes that happens, especially around LAX's airspace where they have planes landing. Now, if the marine layer continues to push in this direction, which it certainly may as it rolls in here, that could pose an issue. But I think we have a little bit of time before that weather comes into play. But, you know, 30% of these pursuit drivers do end up getting away for a variety of reasons, and sometimes weather can be a factor. Now, look at this. They have another unit back in the vicinity, but standing back intentionally. That SUV, that Explorer with the lights and sirens on, but not getting right up behind the driver, giving this person some breathing room, some room to navigate without agitating the driver, but still keeping up with the person, so that when they see an opportunity, they might be able to give it another try and pull this person over. If they could take this all the way to an exit ramp, if they decide to get off at an exit ramp, that's when they have to slow down, and then you have the possibility of a pit maneuver if they slow down enough at an exit ramp and have to make a decision whether to make a right or left turn. Here comes that exit ramp, but this is going to be another freeway here. So it's the 405 interchange at the 110. That CHP unit continuing to follow behind, a ways back, but still following behind. but still on the 405 now, where the speeds are much too fast for any kind of a pit maneuver. But we'll see. We'll see where they take this. Again, now southbound on the 405 freeway. Yeah, technically southbound, although physically going westbound, or I'm sorry, physically going eastbound through this part of the South Bay, going southeast, if you will, towards Long Beach, which is where the 405 will take them, and eventually they will hand it off to another CHP office if this continues towards Orange County. So we'll continue to keep an eye out here, but that CHP unit following onto the 405, only one that I counted, but still the pressure coming from that helicopter up above as well, who is also assisting in calling out the position in case they have another opportunity up ahead to intersect the suspect. Especially on the freeway. This is, without a question, the safest spot for a pursuit like this. Somebody who's so unstable, unpredictable, and has proven to be a very dangerous driver, especially when things get tense. The freeway, especially with the light traffic that we're seeing here, certainly poses the least amount of danger. Now getting all the way over to the right because they see some traffic coming up here, some bumper-to-bumper traffic up ahead, prompting them to exit the freeway, getting off on Wilmington Avenue, and then a decision will be made in just a second here whether to make a right or left turn, and it looks like he or she is shaping up for a westbound turn on Wilmington Avenue here in Compton. And here's a good example, because if there was a unit right behind her with the lights and sirens, I could almost guarantee you they would run that red light. And who knows what could happen when you see that, especially at a railroad interchange like that. It could have been much different if there was somebody trying to pull them over. Instead, they're taking a little bit more of a hands-off approach, laying back but still keeping close tabs on this person and letting this person, exactly, through a red light, making a right turn towards us, a northbound turn, and this is our first really clear shot of this male driver behind the wheel. It's a man behind the wheel, no passenger in the front seat, and no sign of anybody in the back either, although we really can't tell that with those heavily tinted windows, but at least one male driver in the vehicle, and that is, it looks like he's on the phone, picking up the phone, checking the phone, and clearly very animated, wondering whether maybe he's talking to somebody on Bluetooth or what is going on inside the vehicle. But something is clearly agitating the driver, clearly very animated, doing excessive speeds on surface streets here as we travel on 223rd Street here in Compton. Yeah, and there's still the big unknown, which is whether this person may be armed. You know, they don't know that, but they obviously have had the chance to gather some intelligence on this driver, clearly able to track down the registration of the vehicle, and likely at this point able to tell whether there is a history with this person, whether this person has a registered firearm in their name, and whether this person has any kind of a criminal history. So a lot more information in the hands of law enforcement. While we speculate a lot up here and try and figure out what the strategy is, there's always a method to, in this case, the CHP's strategy, and that may be what we're seeing here. They're letting him breathe, keeping their distance, clearly not letting him go, though, from our vantage point. There are CHP units in the area. There's a helicopter following him above, and as we caught that glimpse just a few moments ago in the driver's seat, clearly that person is very animated behind the wheel.
Yeah, a great deal of distress going on with this driver right now, and look at the speeds as they continue to increase. And as the speeds increase, less reaction time, especially when we have seen this person go into oncoming traffic. The reaction time is cut in half, and less than that, exceptionally dangerous maneuvers that we've been seeing. So here we go as he gets closer to some traffic, and then he's going to move out of the left-hand turn lane, back into the main lanes. But he didn't go into oncoming traffic, which is good news there. But still, excessive speeds, which makes this exponentially more dangerous.
A lot more people out on the street here as well as we make our way through Compton, coming to a stop for this red light, and that's something that I'm watching. I checked that, Carson. We're actually in Carson right now, coming to a pause at this intersection. We've seen a few pedestrians out already. This person has the opportunity to continue on here, but they are stopping for the red light. That's a good thing, but that has not always been the case over the course of this pursuit.
Okay. All right, Chris, quickly, we want to do a programming note. There's a good shot of the driver there. As you watch that, we want to let our viewers know that on ABC7, we're going to go to World News Tonight coming up right now. We are moving this pursuit over to abc7.com and the ABC7 Los Angeles app. Join us there. We will continue live coverage. We'll see you on KDOC TV at 7 p.m. as well. All right, we're back now, digitally covering this dangerous pursuit that is going through Carson right now, I believe. Is that correct, Chris? Carson?
Yeah, in Carson, 223rd Street, traveling westbound towards that marine layer that we were talking about a few minutes ago. We're going to follow this as long as we can. Hopefully he makes a right or left turn. If he continues all the way towards the coast, that will pose an issue in the meantime, not just for us, but for the CHP helicopter who's tracking this person's movements from above. Now, we saw just a little while ago a CHP SUV in the shot, but a ways back. I'm going to ask our photographer, Rob Gluckman, if we could pull out just a little bit, and I want to see if there's any sign whatsoever of that CHP unit, and I don't see anybody behind them. So right now, they're relying on the helicopter who's tracking this pursuit, or what is now a following. But again, as he continues westbound on 223rd Street, he's eventually going to go under the clouds. So we'll see what happens here.
Right, Dallas Raines has been talking about that marine layer that's pretty unusual for this time of the summer, middle of July. So it's going to be...
He called it June gloom in July, which has been nice for our weather, but it's going to be a problem for law enforcement if this continues on and he starts to go into that marine layer. It's going to be tough to follow this person and dangerous to follow this person from overhead. And they have to stay away from him because his erratic behavior, look at that, just flying through that intersection. It gets even worse when there's some sort of a black and white behind him. So extremely dangerous. Here he comes up to a four-way stop, and he's going to roll into the walkway, but hasn't gone. So at least he's stopping for traffic. That's a good sign. But extremely dangerous. If you're just joining us right now, we've seen some erratic behavior that is very high speed, going into oncoming traffic, running red lights, coming to near collisions, and even having a collision to some degree on the freeway. So we know anything is possible when it comes to pursuing this person. It's a desperate guy trying to get away. We don't know anything more than the reckless behavior inside the car, if there's anything else attached to why he's wanted. We're trying to get some information there. But nevertheless, it's been very dangerous, Chris.
Copy. Copy that. Yep, sounds good. Sorry, David, I'm back with you.
That's okay.
Just talking to my pilot for just a second here. It does appear that possibly LAPD may be getting involved here, although I'm not exactly. Okay, we're in Torrance, but I heard something about LAPD, so it does look like some other jurisdictions may be getting involved here. I do not hear any activity on the part of CHP, who was the one that has been tracking him, although they are still tracking from above, which has just been quite some time since we've seen any ground units pull up behind him. But now that he's on surface streets, we have noticed some, more composed driving. It looks like his blinkers are on for some reason. And making it, look at that, a wild left turn there when he was in the right turn lane, and now heading back in the westbound direction. We'll see if any of these jurisdictions, any of these other agencies, I should say, decide to pick this up, whether Torrance PD or Redondo Beach Police. If he continues westbound, Redondo Beach will take interest as well. But he is coming up on Compton Boulevard, it looks like, He's at Crenshaw, and look, where did he go? Is he right behind that in the gas station? Is he in? Okay, I've lost him for just a second, guys. Bear with me.
Yeah, I don't see him either. And I could starting to see some of the marine layer coming in.
Southbound Crenshaw coming towards us. Southbound coming towards us. I don't see. Oh, there he is. He's at the intersection. Okay, he's at the red light. He's at the red light at Crenshaw. CHP still monitoring from above. Still no word on whether any of these other neighboring agencies are going to get involved. But it looks like he may be setting up for a left turn in this direction. He's, if you see there, he's right there next to the American flag by the Chevron station, right there in the left turn lane with that taillight blinking. You can clearly still make out that damage on the rear driver's side door. Those windows heavily tinted. And only at one time in this pursuit did I see that window roll down and then go back up. It's been basically up the entire time other than that. And sure enough, making that leftbound turn, southbound now on Crenshaw Boulevard. And away he goes. No sign of law enforcement still.
Hazards?
Yeah, he's got his hazards on.
Oh, it didn't look like the other side was on.
Yep, okay. So not that that's going to add to the safety of this situation.
Okay, this is
another left-hand turn.
So CHP still triangulating apparently as they try and keep close tabs on him without spooking him, without agitating him. They are going to continue to kind of stay in the area, flood the zone with as many units as they can, and that way they're ready for anything, but they don't want to pull up right behind him and try and light him up again. At least that's their tactic as of now. Give him that space to breathe. Let him burn off as much gas as possible, but look at the driving. It's picked up. The speeds have picked up. With some wild turns, left turns from right turn lanes, a quick turn there onto Sepulveda Boulevard, and there you start to see the beginnings of those clouds that are moving into the area here. So he's now on Sepulveda Boulevard. And CHP trying to get into position to maybe bring this to an end, although from our vantage point, they are not right on him, and that's consistent with what we've been seeing here. They are giving him plenty of room, but they are still nonetheless tracking his each and every turn.
Yeah, and then covering this in this area of town with the marine layer moving in, as well as you're close to flight restrictions, aren't you, when it comes to LAX? So it makes it especially difficult to cover this by air.
Oh, yeah. Well, to that point, David, yeah, I was hoping he was going to make that left turn. If he continues westbound, that will put him in the clouds. We'll go ahead and widen out a little bit so you can kind of get a feel for what we're navigating through ourselves up here. That's the beginning of the marine layer, and as he goes much further west, that'll put him completely underneath the clouds. We're going to try and keep an eye on him for as long as we can. Looks like he might be setting up for another southbound turn, and that'll give us the luxury of keeping a closer eye on him. But no, he's going continuing westbound through that intersection there, and we may lose him in the clouds. The problem is that CHP may also lose him in the clouds, and after all of that, it may be this guy's lucky day at least until he gets, because I would almost guarantee they will catch up with him at some point in the future, based on what they know about his residence.
Yeah,
But
they're not going to let him
clearly
go. It's one of those things, they probably have enough information. They probably have a decent idea on who this person
Right.
is. And since the car is not registered as stolen, perhaps it's even the owner of the car that's in that vehicle. So they probably have a firm idea on who this might be. Did he pull into a driveway or a parking lot?
He pulled into, I think, an alley. He pulled into an alley, and we've lost a visual near an apartment complex, 1 block off of Hawthorne Boulevard. And he might be coming out the other side here. We'll watch along with you. Perhaps we might see him come out on the left side of the screen. He was in the vicinity of that black office building, and there he is. And boy, look at him. He's zipping. He is really picking up some steam southbound on, I believe that's Hawthorne Boulevard. So southbound Hawthorne Boulevard at speeds upwards of 60 to 70 miles per hour, really
moving.
picking things up out of the blue. I wonder, you have to wonder, if he saw a black and white somewhere near that intersection. He is going really, really fast now through these intersections. I can't see if these are greens or reds that he's blowing through, but he is really moving, David.
Yeah, and just to remind our viewers, it's difficult for us to keep up and for them to see because there are flight restrictions and dangerous clouds in the area. So this is the best possible angle for Chris to...
the wrong way,
to cover this. But there he goes. We're trying to keep up with this as much as possible. We know it could be frustrating visually, but this is extremely dangerous right now. If this guy decides to run an intersection, Chris, I mean, this could kill multiple people.
Yeah, that's the problem, because he's not showing any signs of braking. He's not even slowing down as he gets through these intersections. Whether they're green or red, doesn't even matter, because he's going so fast. Something has spooked him. Something has alarmed him. It's gotten his attention, and he is pushing the pedal to the metal. He was in oncoming lanes of traffic for one intersection, and you could see him weaving across this 3 lanes here, making a right turn, making a right turn onto 244th Street, making a right turn, another right into a residential neighborhood, northbound through this residential neighborhood in the city of Torrance. We have not seen Torrance PD get involved so far this afternoon. CHP, though, still tracking his movements and trying to get into position. But something happened back there a few miles back that really changed the behavior and changed his driving completely. I mean, he just stepped on it as he was speeding down Hawthorne Boulevard and really scaring a lot of people. But fortunately, man, it's almost a miracle that he didn't hurt somebody there. Back in the wrong way. He's doing whatever he can to get around anybody in his way now. For a long time, he was really driving much more carefully, slowing down for intersections, stopping with stop signs, and now he's just blowing through all of them. He just doesn't care anymore. He is whipping through here like a honey badger, and just really no indication of where he wants to take this pursuit, guys.
Well, it looks like he's pulled his way out of the clouds, and so at least it's clearing when it comes to that, at least in this particular area. Where he goes from here, we don't know. He's looped around.
Into another parking lot.
Okay.
Through a gas station. Gosh, it wouldn't be the first time we've seen him fill up. But
oh my gosh.
I mean, not this particular person, but it's been known to happen. We don't know how much gas is left, but he is now in a Sprouts parking lot at Pacific Coast Highway and Vista, Montana, as he makes his way through, weaving through the parking lot, coming back on to PCH, and just doing a random circle there without any clear reason why. This all appears to be very random driving, random turns, and unlike earlier pursuit, we don't see any reason for it. We don't see law enforcement in the picture trying to pull him over. He still has his blinkers on, his hazard lights are on, and now slowing down again. But man, there were some heart-stopping moments there as he was speeding down Hawthorne Boulevard, driving so fast and so dangerously. A much different scene now as he slows down on PCH, going northbound on PCH, heading back towards that cloud layer. And as far as we could tell from up here, I just don't see any sign of either Torrance PD or the CHP. They're monitoring from above, but we're looking for those ground units, because if he continues westbound towards Redondo Beach, they might lose him. It's a very real possibility. If he continues to meander towards the west here, he may lose law enforcement. It's a very real possibility.
I think there he goes. Yep, he just crossed that street. He crossed that red light. Hey, Chris, I have a stupid question for you, but does law enforcement have to abide by the same rules that you have to abide by when it comes to LAX traffic?
Well, it's less about the rules and more about the safety based on the weather in this particular situation.
Okay.
Because, I mean, there's some negotiating that goes on once we get really close to LAX. But in a situation like this, it's just a matter of how safely they can fly over him. Now, keep in mind, as we cover these pursuits, we travel at a much higher altitude than the law enforcement helicopters, in this case, the California Highway Patrol. They will typically follow above at 500 feet, but this cloud layer is so low that to go any lower than that would really be a little bit too dangerous, and so they have to make some very careful decisions based on their own safety minimums and their weather restrictions. So it does look like we're going to lose him in the clouds here as he heads in towards the Rancho Palos Verdes area. It's going to be a combination of likely Redondo Beach PD that would take this over if he continues in that direction. But at this point, I have lost sight of him, and like I said, it's a very real possibility that today may be his lucky day. Yeah,
look at that marine layer. When you pull out that like that and give that perspective, I mean, it does appear that we have lost him for a little while. It doesn't mean we've lost him forever, Chris, because sometimes you'll hear that they have spotted him, he's continuing to move, and then they re-engage. That's still a possibility, but as of right now, he is in that spot where it's difficult for anybody to continue to follow him. He may have gotten away.
And I can confirm now that law enforcement has also lost a visual, just like us.
Okay.
So he is now under the clouds, no sign of law enforcement on the ground. But I'll tell you one thing. We know that there's a lot of patrol cars out there. If he continues the driving that we saw, it would not be out of the question for them to pick it up once again. It might be another agency, but it just wouldn't be out of the question considering how dangerously is driving and the danger that he poses to everybody else on the road, especially down here in the South Bay where the speed limits are not that high.
Yeah, extremely dangerous driver there. Chris, we're going to let you go for a little while. It's 6:45 right now. We're going to start KDOC TV at 7 o'clock. Eyewitness News. If this re-engages, we'll of course be on it. We're going to monitor law enforcement to see if they can find this guy. In the meantime, we thank you for joining us here on Eyewitness News digitally, but we'll stay on top of it. We'll give you the very latest. We'll see you at 7 o'clock on KDOC TV.